MCiM program. The Masters in Clinical Informatics Management is a very unique program at Stanford that brings together the intersection of learning in healthcare technology management. Our program is a 1 year full-time master's degree designed to accommodate busy professionals, and our goal is to bring together a cross-disciplinary cohort of students at different career stages that will enrich the experience in the classroom and help cultivate a supportive learning environment, culminating in the development of leaders who seek to advance diversity, equity, and inclusiveness in healthcare. This is our third event of a series of Meet the Experts information sessions. They are designed to answer questions you might have about the program that no one other than our students, alumni, mentors, and faculty can answer best. Today, you will learn directly from the MCiM faculty what lays beyond the lecture. To facilitate this event, we are joined here today by Professor Meaghan Moyer. Meaghan is an MCiM graduate from the class of 2024 and has recently joined MCiM as a member of our prestigious faculty team. Welcome, Meaghan, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and take it away from here so the other faculty members can also introduce themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Tatiana. Thank you for the promotion. My title is officially lecturer, but I'll take the promotion any day. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and it really is my honor to be facilitating this event today with our esteemed panel of fellow faculty members. As Tatiana mentioned, I also have the very unique perspective of not just being a faculty member, but also a graduate of the MCiM program. I graduated in June 2024, so just a few short months ago. And I joined as faculty for the program, and I'm co-instructing our practicum course along with Dr. Kavita Patel. All right, so let's jump in and get started. And we'll get started with some introductions by the panel. So panel, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and as you do so, provide your current role, the class that you teach within the MCiM curriculum, which quarter you teach in, a little bit about your background, and then also a few key thoughts that come to mind when you think about the MCiM program. So let's start with Regina.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Meaghan. So nice to see you in this capacity. Hi, everyone. I am Regina Nuzzo, and I co-teach a course summer quarter, very first quarter, with my colleague, Kristen Sanani, who is a professor in the Department of Epidemiology at Stanford. And the course that we teach really looks at safety and quality of U.S. healthcare through the lens of data and statistics, and how to really get at this conceptual statistical understanding of research literature, everything that goes along in that process to, answer all the sorts of questions that you need to improve the world in clinical informatics. I got my PhD at Stanford many years ago in statistics. And right now I actually fly out specially for this course. So in addition to being a part-time lecturer at Stanford for the MCiM program, I'm also a full professor of statistics at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. And Meaghan, you said something that comes to mind
when you
about
think
the
of the
program.
MCiM program.
Yeah, I think it's the energy. I love teaching first quarter, and having everyone together there is something that is really unique and special about getting this this really exciting cohort, very diverse, different backgrounds, exciting, challenging each other, bonding, asking questions, talking about data, doing all these interactive activities. So I just love it.
Thank you, Regina. Mark.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Musen. I'm on the faculty at Stanford Biomedical Informatics. Let's see, my background is such that I have an MD degree. I did a PhD in what was then called Medical Information Sciences, which is a term no one would ever use anymore. But my area is biomedical informatics research. And I teach a class called Modeling Biomedical Systems. Nobody knows what that is. Actually, no, it's pretty simple. A lot of what is taught in MCiM is very quantitative. You learn a lot about machine learning, you learn a lot about statistics, you learn a lot about finances. But all of that requires the ability to think about the numbers in terms of structural models, in terms of qualitative models, and in terms of being able to think about the world in a rigid way which allows for computation. So what I do in my class is I help students understand how they can create databases, how they can create knowledge bases, how they can create the structures that are essential for all of the numbers that you learn about in all the other classes. So it makes this class pretty fundamental. And it doesn't, and I know that sounds pretty abstract, but what it means is if you want to build a database, you need to understand how to do this kind of modeling. If you want to be able to interact with an electronic health record system and understand how drugs are represented, how diseases are represented, you have to understand these kinds of models. And so that's the kind of stuff that I do. What do I like about MCiM? Is that how you frame that, Meaghan?
What comes to mind?
Well, it's a really interesting experience because the curriculum is so diverse. I can't believe that I deal with students, are thinking about financial matters and healthcare management in the morning, talking about computational stuff in the afternoon. That diversity is pretty interesting. The other thing is, as a faculty member, I spent a lot of time with really, I would say, young post-adolescents, and the idea of a student body that is much more diverse, much more mature. Many people have actually done lots of interesting things. It makes it very exciting as a faculty member. And so, well, I guess we're going to try to tell you in the next hour that the great faculty at Stanford make MCiM so exciting. But really, what makes MCiM so exciting is really the great students, because you learn so much from one another, and the diversity of the student body is just incredible.
That is very true. Thank you, Mark. David.
I am David Scheinker. I actually have a PhD in theoretical math, and I switched careers to work on healthcare operations and research. So I'm a professor in pediatrics, and I'm an executive director at the Children's Hospital. And I also have an appointment at the School of Engineering, where I teach the other version of this class. So I teach MSNE 263, which is a master's class for engineering students, and MSNE 263 in MCiM, which takes the same concepts of how can we try to improve the operations of systems. But I focus instead, and it's really what Mark said, on the real lived experiences of the students rather than a really hardcore technical background. So a lot of the problems that we talk about in my class, many of you all have experienced them, have struggled them yourself. And so I focus more at a high level on how these very technical methods, if we find the right partner, can be used to address these problems rather than on the actual underlying mathematical models. Although we do try to go through those in enough detail that you get a decent intuition of when they are and aren't appropriate. And the reason I give a shout out explicitly in my other classes that I've had more than one MCiM student come and sit in on my engineering class because they wanted some more of the mathematical content as well. And you all are absolutely welcome to do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, everyone, for those intros. It's greatly appreciated to get a little bit of an insight into what you do and what you bring to the program. So let's jump into our first question. This question is a little bit of an icebreaker, and it's for all of our panelists. This question is, when you were first approached about joining the MCiM program, what made you say yes to joining our community? Let's go backwards. Let's start with David and then go backwards.
I mean, my answer to the question is actually very boring. It's Kevin Schulman. He is incredible. We had been working together as collaborators and partners in CERC for a while. And pretty much whenever Kevin starts asking, do you want to? I just say yes.
Finish the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. He's taken advantage of that a couple of times. So now I've at least learned to slow it down. But I think in a little more seriousness, what got me really excited, besides Kevin and like my faith and kind of the quality of the endeavors he pursues, was when we started talking about the types of students we would recruit and the type of curriculum that we would design to really meet the very appropriately skeptical points of view of more experienced people. I mean, when I'm teaching master's students who have, some have come directly from undergraduate, some have had a technical position, I don't have to do much convincing. They take my word for how challenging and important the problems in healthcare are. When I'm working with MCiM students, some of them have far more experience in healthcare than I do. It's really a learning experience for me, which I enjoy a great deal, and really makes this, I think, better for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Mark, what made you say yes to MCiM?
Well, I guess after Kevin Schulman spoke with David, he came and spoke with me. Kevin's very persuasive. Kevin's very dynamic. I had heard wonderful things about programs that he developed at other institutions, and so it made me very interested in what he might accomplish at Stanford. Stanford also is a place where a lot of people do different things in biomedical informatics, and it's important to know that as an MCiM student, you're not coming into a desert of where MCiM is will be the only element of your universe, or our universe for that matter. There's a graduate program in biomedical informatics that we offer at Stanford for people who want to become academics and work in informatics. There's a program which we call the Clinical Informatics Fellowship, which is designed for people who already have a lot of clinical training, who are interested in getting board certification in informatics and want to become someone who's active in industry, or perhaps be a chief medical information officer. That's not all that different from a lot of MCiM students, but it's very focused on the clinical aspects of the activity and doesn't really bring in all of the dimensions that MCiM brings to the table. And then we have undergraduates who do all kinds of stuff. There's an undergraduate major in biomedical computation. There's an undergraduate major in computer science that has an interest in biomedical informatics. And so the undergraduate curriculum is also replete with this kind of stuff. But MCiM was different. MCiM was not trying to just create more geeks. It was trying to develop a kind of student who had some experience in the real world, who wanted to go back into the real world and bring what they would learn in the MCiM curriculum to a very complicated setting where they would have knowledge of informatics, knowledge of computation, but also knowledge of the healthcare industry, knowledge of healthcare financing, basically what it takes to make a healthcare system successful, what it takes to make a startup company successful for that matter. And I think that breadth was really appealing to me. I have to confess, a little bit incredulous. I never really imagined all that stuff being lumped together into the same curriculum, but I think it really works, and I think it makes it very exciting.
Great, thank you, Mark. And Regina.
So Kevin approached Kristen, and then Kristen approached me. So I'm like 1 degree of separation away from the Kevin sales pitch on that. And as soon as Kristen described this course to me and described the entire program, I was on board, partly because Kristen and I have worked together for a number of years. We've been friends since we were grad students together at Stanford many, many years ago. And we've had similar career paths in teaching statistics. And we are also trained as science journalists. And we've had this dual career, science journalism, statistics, teaching, all of this together. And we have this, really great dynamic. And I think we complement each other as professors. And we were able to design this really unique course and have a good time with it. So that was what did it to me.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So Kevin as a through line. That's excellent. All
What
right.
about you, Meaghan? What made you say yes?
Well, I said yes in a little different way. Yes, I want, or more of, I want you to say yes to me as applying as a student, right, as first getting into MCiM. But what made me say yes to joining as a faculty member is it's a very short year. I got so incredibly much out of the program, and I knew that there was more that I could get out as well as give back. And so I really wanted to join as a faculty member for the practicum course in particular to really help students through the program, as well as really understanding what their practicum course could be that really sets a foundation to whatever their next phase in their career is. So thank you, Tatiana. I appreciate having the question turned on me.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, so let's jump to our second question here, and this one's specifically for Mark and Regina. Mark and Regina, how does MCiM rather align with your current research or professional interests? Regina, let's start with you.
Oh. As I mentioned before, I have a background in science journalism. So Krista and I both, after we finished our PhDs, went and did science journalism. And my specialty is really quantitative communication, conceptual understanding, how to make information accessible, relevant to people. I always say it's easier to reshape the information to fit other people's brains than it is to try to reshape people's brains to fit the information. And that's the approach that Krista and I really bring in this course, because you can have fantastic ideas and be working with fantastic colleagues, fantastic employees, but it's really about this gut understanding of data and statistical thinking, and then being able to communicate that and speak the language, ask the right question to be able to have a real discussion, dialogue about data. Data is underlying everything. And how are you doing that in this gut way? So this course really allows Krista and me to explore that even further.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Regina. Mark, how does MCiM align with your professional interests?
Well, my work professionally is in the area of building intelligent systems. I've done a lot of work in the area of clinical decision support, and a lot of my early work on the faculty was building systems to help doctors make better decisions, and usually in complex areas, managing clinical trials, dealing with complex chemotherapy. And that has made me very interested in how to represent knowledge in a way that computers can reason about it, how to deal with structuring the world so that it becomes more useful to machines. And actually, my most current work has drifted from the clinical world to life sciences. And now I'm interested in how can we help biologists deal with their worlds better in terms of making things more structured and more useful, so that we can actually share the data that come out of biomedical laboratories. One of the biggest challenges we have in biomedicine is we have this enormous clinical research enterprise. We are, as scientists, generating enormous amounts of information, lots and lots of data. But usually, once those data get generated, they get thrown away. And people recognize that the data that come out of experiments are just as important as the PDF documents that people publish in the literature. And really, the question in my laboratory is, how can we make those data more useful to other investigators who can learn from other people's data, basically new discoveries, be able to understand the world in ways which may have been missed the first time around, but with secondary analysis might lead to new kinds of observations. And so my work really is in how can we structure clinical knowledge, how can we structure data, how can we make all that available for use computationally. And that's a lot of the stuff I touch on in the course that I teach in MCiM. And what makes MCiM fun is that not only do I get to talk about the stuff that I do in my laboratory, but what's a lot more important is I get to see how some of the professionals in the MCiM student body have done things that rely on these same kinds of techniques. And so it provides a really great opportunity to compare notes, to understand how what we learn in the curriculum actually plays out in the real world in a very important way. And that makes it kind of fun for me.
Yeah, excellent. It's actually a little related to our next question, and all of you have touched on it in some form or fashion from your responses so far. But we're going to dig a little deeper into just how complex and challenging the healthcare system is, and clinical informatics world can be. So this question is for David and Regina. How does the MCiM curriculum address the evolving challenges and opportunities in clinical informatics and healthcare management? Let's give Regina a break. And David, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so one thing I always just want to step back a little bit to emphasize that operations, research, management science, industrial engineering, it's not the same thing as like ML or AI. It's a more general set of technical tools that include ML and AI, but also include things like optimization or integer programming, queuing, theory, discrete event simulation, used to improve the function of organizations. So it's an entire discipline. And for example, companies like Amazon and airlines routinely hire PhDs from operations research and management science departments. They have long seen the value of this kind of rigorous methodology to improving quality and efficiency. So that's specifically what I work on, where healthcare is really far behind peer industries. And it's especially striking how far behind healthcare is because the physicians and the nurses are so exceptionally highly trained. The actual clinical care delivered. I mean, we're doing heart surgery on babies in utero. Like the technical sophistication of some of the things we do is just on par with SpaceX. But the operational sophistication of how we support that still includes whiteboards and fax machines and paper scheduling. And so that stark dichotomy really suggests there's a big opportunity on the operations side. So that's kind of like why I'm excited about this one. I think the opportunity is, and that's exactly what my course focuses on. Connecting the challenges that we see in healthcare to the methods that other industries have really used to improve, with an emphasis on why anything but incredibly careful and well-considered application of these methods is almost certain to fail. It's very, very easy to walk around a hospital and say, oh, this could be better, or almost any healthcare provider. But it's incredibly difficult to say, oh, this could be improved with this approach that considers these 17 subtle cultural, organizational, tech stack, and other factors besides like the one relatively obvious inefficiency. And I mean, I'm sure that you all, like many of our previous students, are nodding because your own experiences accord with this.
Yeah, thank you, David. Regina, how do you address the evolving challenges?
Yeah, I want to take a big picture step back at the curriculum because this curriculum is so well designed. And people who are watching this, if you haven't checked out the webpage, maybe Tatiana can even put in a URL in the chat. This is exquisitely designed right down to which courses you're getting in, which semester, who's teaching them. One thing I love is that throughout every quarter, there's a bioethics course. And I think this is so important because this really does underpin everything that's going on in the modern world for this. But look at what you're getting: marketing science, patient management, accounting, business strategies, biodesign. You're really getting everything in this compact thing. The other thing that I want to call out is starting second quarter, pretty much right away, just when you're getting your feet wet, you are starting the practicum right there. And this allows, Meaghan, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this, this really allows all these students to tailor fit what their education is going to be, depending on what they want to explore, and to work with fabulous people along the way. So Meaghan, I'll let you talk more about that. But I think that this entire thing is exquisitely designed and very modern. You won't find anything like this anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that practicum plug. Yeah, I completely agree. It's your opportunity to really dig into areas and round out the curriculum that you want to create, right? I almost see two camps of students here. They come to the MCiM and they use the practicum to really dig into an area that they're already deeply embedded in and passionate about, and create new opportunities for them in that lane, which is great. Then I see another group of students that think, I want to take this as an opportunity to do something that is totally outside of my wheelhouse. Maybe I've only ever worked in academic medical centers before. I want to learn what it's like to work in a startup, right? And so, and that is a perfect practicum is a perfect opportunity to kind of dip your toe in and see what that world is like, to really round out your experiences and then springboard you into whatever the next phase of your career is. So thanks for that. Okay, excellent. Great, thank you for those responses. So next question is for all of you. And this question is, what types of real-world projects or case studies do students engage in your respective courses? And how do these experiences prepare them for leadership roles in healthcare? Let's start with Mark.
Okay. Well, my class is one where students really have to pick up some very basic skills that they may not have had previously. So we often start out by modeling things that are familiar, but may not be necessarily professionally all that relevant, but at least gives everybody a common denominator. So for example, it takes a fair amount of effort to learn how to model the kinds of structures that we call ontologies that define for a computer how things in the world relate to one another. And so in my class, yeah, eventually we'll start talking about how to model that for real world systems, but it's really nice to start out by modeling Pokemon and the various classes of Pokemon and how they related to one another. And I learned so much from that. Unfortunately, the students seem to already know about all this stuff, and that's fine. We also look at case studies from industry, and I actually bring in friends of mine who have started companies or working companies and can talk about how the things that we learn in the class play out in the real world. I think that becomes very, very important.
Yeah, I love that. I did not know about the Pokemon classifications, so that was a learning opportunity for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit culture bound. Not everyone has that experience, but
Yeah.
we always have some really good Pokemon Go players.
I believe that. David, how about you? How do you bring the real world into your classroom?
I'll answer that, but I've also just been taking a quick look at the questions that people have been posting, and I'll just take a couple of them together and answer. I think
Sure.
this actually helps segue into my answer. So there are definitely opportunities to take classes all over Stanford. There are opportunities to work as research assistants. I've had numerous people go from the MCiM program to work as research assistants, either on projects that I've already had going that they wanted to join, or their own projects that they have proposed. And one of the ways this is possible is because any kind of serious work takes an interdisciplinary team. And so my course is built around classroom discussions when we flush out methods and case studies that are all based on empirical hospital data with complex, poorly defined objectives and competing objectives and vague aspirational goals, which are like what you're going to face in the real world. And the teams that work on them absolutely benefit from a mix of people that have technical skills, that have healthcare experience, and that have a variety of other skills, because the most interesting problems aren't the ones that you just, need to have one specific calculus formula really memorized for. They're the ones where you need to synthesize an understanding of a complex system with the limited picture that the data provide, build some model of that system with those data that you know is wrong. All models are wrong, but you strive to build a model that's useful. And then in the limited imperfect capacity of that model, generate insights to how some operational decisions that this institution needs to make could be made better, or at least generate the potential impact of alternative decisions so people could make those decisions with a slightly more rigorous cost-benefit analysis.
Great, thank you, David. Regina, how about you? How do you bring the real world into your classroom?
Kristen and I do a lot of case studies and real world examples. A lot of it starts with understanding where research has gone wrong, where there have been problems, high profile errors, and how to make sure that any research you're working with do not actually get there. So we talk about some good stories in research and what's happening in the real world. We also have a module specifically to address one of the questions in the Q&A. I know I keep hitting on communication, but it really is everything. And Kristen and I have a module specifically on quantitative communication, writing about data, because it's very different than writing about just, you know, sheer science or business. There's something in there, data visualization in there. And Kristen and I have also designed our course so that students every week have cooperative quizzes, which the quiz part sounds bad, but the cooperative part is fun. And it forces students to get together in these small teams and explain and discuss these concepts, listen to other people, argue back and forth, and come out of there seeing a really different perspective from other people. And again, you can have terrific ideas, but if you're not able to understand other people's ideas, engage with them, communicate them on your own, that's really nothing. And so we try to bring that into the classroom that we do, all our activities.
Regina, I'll never look at p-values the same way again after your class.
That was fun, wasn't it?
David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add a little bit because I forgot to answer one of the questions I intended to. So at least in my class, each of these case studies culminates with you and your team coming up to the front of the room and presenting the case study with what is one of these incredibly important interdisciplinary skills, presenting the results of a technical analysis to domain experts that don't have technical expertise, and making your recommendations clear and compelling despite not going through the details of the mathematics. And closely related to that, although the case studies we pick are pretty specific to different aspects of hospital operations, the challenges they address are universal to any service. And that this is really broadly true of the curriculum. Although we have our own examples that we're most familiar with, there's an example about dentistry. So dentistry, like any other service, has in common that patients have wait times. Patients have wait times to schedule across days and on the days of. Providers have different utilizations of different resources that determine the wait times for those resources on average. There are opportunities to more effectively select which patients should be seen and mixed with others by triaging using data. And so a lot of these things, although, you know, there may be some bias on the Stanford campus of being Stanford Hospital focused in some of our examples, it certainly does not narrow the applicability of the curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. This next question is for Regina and Mark. We've talked about the student body and the faculty developing really strong relationships with each other and really taking on a mentorship role as faculty members. So can you speak about an experience that you've had mentoring an MCiM student, and how did that mentoring support them post-graduation? Regina, you want to start with that?
Sure. Along the way, I have helped numerous students with their research or their practicum work outside the classroom. And even after they've left our class, they still want to get together, talk about statistics. And I'm able to help them in a way with a depth and a specificity that we're not able to get to in the classroom. One I wanted to mention, so he has not yet graduated, he's in this year's cohort, but throughout the quarter, the summer, we had fascinating conversations about sensors, wearables, and data. He has access to a lot of the data, these these types of instruments. And he said, I think I love data, but I'm really scared of it and I'm not sure what to do. So throughout the quarter, we had numerous conversations. I gave him books to read and helped to supplement it and gave him some advice on how to start out with this. And by the end of the quarter, he said, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling good about this. You know, I love this. And that was wonderful to see. So I can't wait to see where he's going, you know, beyond with that. But that would be one good example.
I love that. Thanks, Regina. Mark, how about you?
Yeah, what comes to mind is an experience that actually played out twice with different students, both in exactly the same area. First year and then the second year, one of the students in each cohort was a nurse. Both were interested in creating startup companies. Both of them realized that descriptions of nursing processes is actually really a mess in healthcare. A lot of that stems from the fact that I think many nurses have a problem with self-identification. Exactly what a nurse does is very, very broad and depends on what the setting is and many, many features. And so basically in both cases, I worked with those two students to help them sort through the very many different ways of trying to construe what nursing is all about, picking a classification system that might work. And in both cases, those students were creating startup companies and needed the ability to describe nursing behavior in a way which was consistent and coherent. And it kind of reinforced not only the fact that MCiM teaches things that are really important in the real world, but also points out that a lot of things in the real world are not cut and dried, are not settled. And one of the things that I think we teach in MCiM is not only what the answers are, but how to think about the process that leads you to the answers, because oftentimes we're dealing with things where there's not a definitive way to solve a problem. And that's, I think, that's what makes this area very exciting. Earlier in the chat, the question was, well, there's a question there now, what is the difference between clinical informatics and biomedical informatics and health informatics? And these adjectives actually make life very confusing. I like the word informatics without a modifier because it means that's what I do and I don't have to worry about all the details. But I think people who talk about clinical informatics are usually talking about informatics in a healthcare setting. People who talk about health informatics don't want to exclude what happens with patients and patients in their homes. And so that seems a little bit more general. People say biomedical informatics when they don't want to exclude the research community. But these all are very overlapping, and it's not worth going into great details, except to let you know that in MCiM, you'll hear about all this stuff. Yeah. It's really a very, very broad curriculum, and I think that's what makes it most exciting. The question is, what's the difference between MCiM and the other biomedical informatics programs at Stanford? I'll say categorically, MCiM has the best swag. So I think that's clearly why you should be thinking of MCiM before all the other opportunities here at Stanford. But MCiM really is the place to go if you're thinking about a career that's going to draw heavily on understanding the healthcare enterprise, that's going to require you to understand computation and management and finance and all those good things. There's an academic program in biomedical informatics, which is good if you want to really go into an academic career, though a lot of graduates with PhD degrees end up going into industry just as well. And we have a clinical informatics fellowship, as I said. Again, those are for board certified people who really want to be able to draw on their clinical skills more than anything else. They're all complementary. We all love one another, and I think you'll find that many of the clinical informatics fellows will sit in on MCiM courses if they can. You'll interact with people in the graduate program because they may be your TA. So it's kind of a big happy family. People go to MCiM really because they have an idea that what they really need in life is a background that will teach them not only the informatics, but also the skills they need to succeed in industry or in the healthcare in a healthcare setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll add, it really grooms you to be a leader in those settings. All right.
The word leader is really important there. It really is. The assumption is that you're going to be doing something big by the time you graduate or soon thereafter. And I think that really has played out pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is actually a perfect segue into our next question for Mark and for David. How does MCiM prepare its students to excel as leaders in the healthcare industry? So let's double click on that a little bit. David, you want to start?
So I think that there's a couple of things, and I also think this highlights one of the differentiators of the program. I mean, leadership it's incredibly tough to define, and yet we all know fantastic leaders that we've worked with, by whom we're inspired, whom we trust to help push things forward and get results. And we've also, unfortunately, all experienced people in positions of leadership and authority where it's not clear what they're doing there, why they're there, or how they're helping the institution succeed. And it's this real diversity of the curriculum and the interdisciplinary work of the students together and of the students across a variety of subjects, as well as the opportunities to, speak to your work, present your work, think outside of specifically defined technical or other methods to get to solutions that are all in lines with this like difficult to define quality of leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, David, for that. Mark, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree with everything David just said. I'll say one of the things that is really stressed in the MCiM curriculum is the idea that people work in teams, and that a lot of the activities involve small groups, often the same groups throughout the entire year. And that really is a good way of learning team dynamics, learning how to take advantage of skills, how to play to people's strengths. All these things are really important when you end up going into the real world. And I said most of you have already been in the real world in some way already. We often, as faculty members, like to think that the reason that people do well is because we teach them great stuff, that we're really marvelous instructors, that our sheer presence is what stimulates all this. Really, what makes MCiM great is the students. And I think much of the leadership skills stem from being in a cohort of students who have been selected because you're already great people. And what really is so amazing to me is what everyone in that group, in that room has done, what they're planning on doing, what backgrounds they come from. Nobody has the same background. Everybody is different, but the common denominator is that there's a group of students who are really driven, who have an idea of what they want to do in life, and really know how the skills that the MCiM program is going to provide them will help them do those kinds of things. And so I think, yeah, the curriculum is great and Stanford is great, but really it's the students, I think, who make it very special.
I completely agree. Despite the diversity of backgrounds, everyone seems to fit together so incredibly well. And we often end up learning just as much from each other as we do from the faculty members and mentors and everyone around us.
So whatever Kevin is doing, he needs to keep doing it, I guess.
I think so. I think he's onto something. That's great. All right, well, we've got one more question left before we jump into Q&A, and this question is for everyone. What qualities or traits are necessary for students to succeed in your classes and or the MCiM program? Regina, kick us off.
I actually have a fairly data-driven answer for this one, in addition to my gut feelings. Just this past cohort, we decided to do a little informal psychological survey, and we collected data and analyzed that data. And I think everyone would make good astronauts, actually. I think that's what we decided, because you have to be technical and very smart, but you also have to be open. Everyone was very curious, very high on this curiosity and openness and being willing to engage with ideas. And people enjoy talking. There's a lot of discussion, working in your groups, class discussions. So I would say, actually, it's that curiosity and ability to work with other people under these tight conditions, which is why we decided it was a little like being an astronaut cooped up in a rocket ship.
Sometimes late night meetings in these small meeting rooms, yes, you feel like you're in a little capsule pod in space. Yes, I completely agree. All right, David, how about you? What traits are necessary to succeed?
I think you know, success is another one of those things that's difficult to define. I'd say a little bit of introspection to decide, do you want to use this program as an opportunity to lean in on your strengths and go deeper into thinking about how you can harness them, how you can increase your network, how you can improve your skills and apply them, and really how can you explore the kinds of things you love or don't love applying your skills to? Or alternatively, it really can be an opportunity to just push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And a lot of the people I've worked with have decided to, you know, go a significantly different direction than their previous experience or their assumptions about where their skills and training should take them. And then, you know, there's by no means a requirement that you sit and meditate on this until you have everything illuminated. I think a lot of us on the faculty are just happy to talk to you. I'm definitely much happier when people come to me in my office hours because they want to chat about healthcare or how I got to where I did in my career or about other things than like specific things about the class. Happy to talk specifically about the class, but it's just more fun for me to talk about you, your interests, and your experiences.
That's great. Thank you, David. And Mark, close us out.
Yeah, I would say that students at MCiM really share the common trait that they're focused on what they want to do with their lives. They may not have it all worked out, and in fact, most of the time they don't have it worked out, but they recognize that the purpose of MCiM is to teach a bunch of skills that will move you in a particular direction. MCiM is not a place where people care about grades. It's not a place where people care about being summa cum laude. You can't, there is no such thing. The real emphasis is on what you learn and how you're going to use it and how you relate to other people. And that's something that's special, because if you're someone who wants to come in and get have a wonderful transcript, this is the wrong place to do that, because really what matters the most is what you get out of the experience. And I really can't stress that enough. The other thing is it just requires a certain amount of ardor for what we're offering. Most people in MCiM have day jobs in addition to being a full-time student. It's hard. And sometimes when you're working, both weekend days in order to get done, I don't know how all students are able to do that, but they really care about this a lot. They know that this is exactly what they need for what they need next in life. And so it requires that kind of dedication and that kind of commitment. And for the students that usually get selected, that's not a problem at all.
I second that difficulty of working full-time and being a student in the program. Completely agree. You absolutely have to be passionate about healthcare. I jotted down some traits. We mentioned technical ability, open, engaged, introspective, and experience-driven. I think those are some amazing words and attributes that really sum up MCiM students. All right, those are our questions. Tatiana, I believe you're going to lead us in a Q&A to close us out.
Sure, absolutely. We have one question in the Q&A that has not been answered yet by the panelists while talking or by myself. So I just want to ask everybody or anyone who would like to address this one. It's from an anonymous attendee. Is thanking you for this session and saying, for some of us who have never worked in healthcare, science, or statistical job, what kind of background do you think would set us up for success in MCiM? This is especially for those of us who wish to switch careers. This is open to anybody who would like to take this question.
I mean, so my class, my engineering class, actually through word of mouth became so popular with physicians and nurses and others with no technical experience that I created 2 tracks of the same class. And that also holds for the class I teach here. I'd say in general, there are a few incredibly powerful tools that are incredibly easy to use and relatively quick to learn. So Google Sheets or Excel, Tableau, and GPT. These are tools you can learn very quickly and can kind of, through really nicely designed online tutorials take you from like no data analytical skills to like a pretty high level of comfort with basic data visualization, manipulation, interpretation relatively quickly.
I would also add just a curiosity for healthcare. No, being experienced in healthcare is not a prerequisite for this program. In fact, there have been students who've been very successful in this program who have never had any experience in healthcare, but they're incredibly interested in healthcare. So I think bringing that passion and openness to learn. In fact, I think healthcare could do well to learn more from different industries and people from different backgrounds, right? And so I think not having a healthcare background is not a detriment. I, in fact, would see it as an asset to this program and what you bring to the classroom.
Thank you. I have another question that maybe any faculty can address this one. A student is asking, I understand there's a significant amount of team assignment and others. I assume other work outside the classroom. Do we have a session to learn leadership to effectively work as a team?
It's an interesting question. I think you are on different teams every single quarter, so you're effectively with 4 different groups of people throughout the entire program. So right then and there, the dynamics are going to be different and every team that you are on. Some will be smooth, some might be more challenging. But yes, there is intentionality around creating discussions and experiences around who am I as a leader and what do I bring. In fact, there's an exercise with our current students that they did a couple of weeks ago where they really wrote down and were introspective in their own needs and how they communicate, how they want to be communicated to, how they best communicate to others. So yes, there is space for really level setting and understanding how we all work together, because ultimately, yes, the product is quite often a group product in these classes. And so really having those open and honest and level setting communications is really, really important.
Thank you, Meaghan. This is an interesting question. So
I was just
go
going to
ahead,
add,
David. Sorry.
I wish I knew how to, in abstract, teach people to work effectively in teams, but just throwing you into lots of difficult, challenging, but hopefully fun and exciting opportunities, I think that's the best way to learn.
Yeah, actually, I can't believe I forgot about this, but there is a whole class in the MCiM curriculum called organizational behavior. So yes, in that class, you read case studies and you do exercises and you learn about leadership and behavior within different organizations. And so you absolutely will learn a whole lot that you can then apply to your work in MCiM and beyond.
All right. So for the next question I have here, it is a very specific question for faculty. What do you expect? Would you expect more from business professionals and technology professionals to contribute in class discussion? How the collaborative inclusive discussion is expected in the classroom to solve pressing issues with clinicians or MD classmates? This is an interesting one, and I think it depends on the class as well.
I think it really depends on the class. I would say certainly in my class, everything is a leveler. Having a lot of experience in business, having a lot of experience in healthcare really doesn't matter that much, because we're teaching skills that people coming from both backgrounds need to learn, and these are skills that they probably don't have already. And so there's no major advantage. And just really to reemphasize the concern that was raised earlier, you don't need to have a lot of healthcare background in order to do well in MCiM. I mean, if you grew up watching reruns of House and Scrubs and ER, you probably are going to have all the healthcare knowledge you need. Similarly, None of the clinically oriented people in MCiM will have nearly the kind of professional knowledge that you'll have about industry if that's where you're coming from. And I think what makes this an exciting place is that everybody has stuff to teach everybody else, and no one's going to have a major advantage by knowing one thing versus another.
I mean, I'd just say that actually explicitly lean in on the business side of healthcare and the technology side of healthcare, because one of the most naive things you could ever do is assume that you could make some improvement to your service or care delivery using only technology in isolation from the corresponding business model and from the underlying technological foundation on which you try to deploy it. I mean, they're so deeply interconnected.
So true, David. Um, One last question before we end. Since we're all here, what would you say are some possible professionals and working opportunities that I could gain or anybody in this panel could gain through the knowledge gained during the program? I am a physician working on occupational medicine.
The question is hard to answer because there's so many options here. I mean, this is not a simple multiple choice. Uh, the clinicians in MCiM end up doing all kinds of things. Some of them go back and become smarter clinicians, and that's perfectly good. Some of them become CMIOs, Chief Medical Information Officers, and they help other clinicians deal with technology. Some become venture capitalists. Some go into startups. Some get jobs with large consulting companies. Some get jobs with small companies. I think what's great about MCiM is that there's not a cookie cutter solution for anybody. And having a particular background doesn't predestine you to a particular outcome at the end of the year. You're basically in a situation where you're going to be learning skills all over the place. And many people come into the program thinking they know exactly what they want to do in life, and then become exposed to all kinds of new things.
I think you can really see that in the work that the students do in the practicum, because it is so disparate and each one is so exciting and very particular to their interest. And I think that shows the breadth. Yeah.
All right, everyone. That was it for today. I thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This was incredible. This recording will be shared with everybody who registered for this session. If you have any questions or any questions that didn't get answered, I will put my email address and her program email address on the chat for everyone. And you are welcome to reach out to me after this session.